Hi, we are going to work problem 428 from page 191. You may want to go ahead and get your textbook or get your e-reader open, because for most of the time while I'm working it, I won't be looking at these numbers. I'll just be working the problem, so you won't be able to see the book while I'm working the problem. In this particular problem, we're going to be comparing what it's like if we determine a plant-wide rate for overhead based just on labor hours, or if we get a little more sophisticated and determine our overhead and apply it based on a couple of different activities depending on the department. So in this example, we have some estimates for direct labor hours, machine hours, and overhead costs for a Department 1 and a Department 2. We're making two different products, Product 1 and Product 2. And this bottom part is what we actually did in terms of labor, machine, and overhead, and this is applying it by product. So we're going to compare across departments and products these two different ways of doing overhead and see if it makes any difference. Alright, for those of you who would like to look back at a problem in the textbook, Problem 4.1 on page 143 explains a lot of what we're doing with respect to overhead. Alright, so in this particular problem, we are first, part 1 says, compute the plant-wide predetermined overhead rate and calculate the overhead assigned to each product. So, plant-wide across two products. Alright, so it doesn't matter what each department does. If they use a lot more man hours or a lot more machine hours, we're just going to do it straight across with labor and apply it to both products, regardless of what happens in either department. Alright, so the first thing we want to do is we're going to figure out our total overhead that we're going to estimate. So, for Department 1, we think there's going to be $384,000. For Department 2, we think there's going to be $1,152,000. So for part 1, let's get our total overhead estimate equals 384 plus 1,152,000, and that's going to equal 1,536,000. Alright, so that's our overhead. For this plant-wide application, we're going to use labor hours. Regardless of what happens in either department, we're just going to add up the labor hours and use that total labor hours estimated. So, Department 1 is going to use 640,000, and Department 2 is going to use 128,000. So that means our total labor hours is 768. Alright. Labor hours. Alright. So we've got our estimate overhead. We've got our estimate of our labor hours. So now what we have to do is just take that and divide 1,536,000 divided by 768,000. Conveniently, that's $2 per labor hour. Alright. So, the point of doing this, of course, is to apply the overhead to the products. So, as we look at Product 1 and we look at Product 2, we can see that we are using labor hours for those products. So what do we actually end up using for Product 1? Alright, so the actual Product 1, right, had, let's see, if you look at Product 1, it had labor hours of 480,000 in Department 1 and 96,000 in Department 2, right? So that's 576,000 hours, right? So $2 per hour times 576 hours equals 1,152,000, right, for our product 1, our estimate of our overhead cost. And on product 2, we get 185,600 hours. So $2 per hour times 185.6 equals 371,200. All right. So there is, if we apply $2 per hour for our products, that's what we end up with. Now this doesn't really tell us much about if that's a good idea or not. You know, maybe one of these is more labor intensive than another, I don't know. So on the next video for problem 4.28, we'll look at a slightly different take on this using both labor hours and machine hours.